Well, welcome, listeners. As I was saying in the intro, again, we have such great guests on the show, and this time we have an even better one in Frank Van de Ven. I've had the privilege of doing some things with Frank over the years, know his career, his storied career. He's a great guy, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. Welcome, Frank. How are you doing this morning?
Doing great, and thank you for inviting me, Bryan. It's really an honor to be on this podcast.
Yeah, you were kind enough to invite me years ago to speak for your life team when you were having an event in Europe, and
I remember that one.
Yeah, it was so great, and I followed you for a long time. Know your history, as I mentioned in the introduction. Frank, what led you? I knew you had a background at GE and Philips, and you did a lot of corporate work, and then you kind of got into health promotion. What led you to the fitness space, and where was your journey, and then what are you working on now?
Clear. What my parents taught me is follow your dreams, follow your passion. And, the products that I was marketing didn't inspire me enough. So at a point, High Five approached me to become a part of their business and selling corporate fitness. So at that time, it was really early days where, fitness was in the early days, but even corporate fitness. So having a gym within your corporation was even a really new idea. And so that really inspired me to how do you help people having healthier lives and fitter lives. So there was a book written by Dr. James Rippey, Fit for Success. And that was all about how do you help the corporate employee helping living better, being more productive and all of that. So that inspired me. At a point within High Five, getting more companies joining the business, we built up a franchise model at that time, which, you're talking about early 90s, which was at that time, of course, there was the McDonald's, but in fitness world, it wasn't known that well. So we built up that franchise model, started also offering our modules to commercial clubs, and also started our clubs ourselves. With that, I got into contact with Live Fitness. And so Koen van der Hoek invited me. He was the general manager for Live Fitness Benelux, who was just acquired by Live Fitness at that time to be a direct business. And he invited me to come to the US. And I thought like, wow, I met Augie Nieto. Man, that person inspired me from day one. And I thought like, oh man, I want to join this company. So in 96, I joined Live Fitness in the Benelux. So helping Live Fitness Benelux as a marketeer, but also it was called Live Fitness Export. I hated that word, but it was meant all the distributors outside the US. We changed that name when I got the responsibility to partners, as well as the liaison. I know you know Herman Rutgers. And Herman Rutgers had the assignment to build the international landscape. We were really a US company, and the international presence. I remember my first meeting in the US, hardly anybody was talking about international. And so Herman said, can you help me also to be the intermediary between the US and international? And so that's how I started with Live Fitness. I think a year following, I was invited to the US, and I thought like, oh, cranky, that could be a short career where they sack me, or maybe there are new opportunities. So it was nice. Augie and Herman sat down with me and saying, hey, we want you to become the general manager for Live Fitness Benelux. The thing was, because I worked already as a marketeer for Live Fitness Benelux, I observed the culture in the organization. I'm a big believer of cultures in a company. We'll talk about that later on. But the culture was one of, it's okay to be number 5 or 6. And that wasn't sitting in my DNA. I want to be number 1. Number 2, don't like it, but number 5 or 6. So we reorganized the whole team. I can tell you, Marco Vonk, I made him the sales manager, and he's the best sales manager I ever saw. And we started building our market share from 14% to over 40% in 3 years. Having a great team, lots of talent, Ernst de Neef, Mendel Wietsenhuizen, how now run function. were part of that team. It was a very A team. So with that success, Live Fitness was thinking, hey, what you did in the Benelux, can you also do that for Spain? Because we were just moving from a distributor model to a direct model. So did that. And then within Live Fitness, a few years later, they asked me to do Continental Europe, Middle East, Africa. Then, of course, the UK, always a bit as an outstander, was added to it. And then at A point, so I remember we were in between presidents at Live Fitness. Peter Hamilton, who was the vice chair for Brunswick, and the interim president for Live Fitness said, why are we running international from the US? Why aren't we running international from international? So he approached me, and still thank Tim McCarthy for that, because he said, oh, I think Frank is a great guy who could do that. So I became the responsible person for international. I think it was 2010. So running EMEA as well as Asia. And then a few years after that, Paul Stoneham promoted me to CCO and CMO, so responsible for global sales and global marketing. I retired, given my old age, at end of March 2023. But then I thought, I don't know if you know the book Halftime. Halftime is a book that talks about giving back. So, first you focus on your own career, but at a point you want to give back. And so what I realized is, man, I can't, moving from 80 hours a week to nothing, being retired, doesn't work for me. So this is where I started as a growth strategy advisor. The first company was ReformRx. So in the Reformer Pilates world, business was sold in 8 months to iFit. Then I started working with her. And as I mentioned briefly at the beginning, yesterday we launched VOA. So I created a white paper. And yesterday we launched VOA for the fitness, health, longevity segment. I also am now an advisor for Fold. So still in the Pilates world, and we can talk about it because I do believe those are the hot trends: strength training, Pilates, mental fitness. But we can talk about it in a moment. And some others, which I'm not allowed to mention the names of. But enjoying my time as a, call it, semi-retired person, Bryan.
You've had a very storied career, and a lot of people have very high regard for you and all that you did over the years building the global brand Life, which is a phenomenal story, a great story. So you mentioned trends, and I know you're out there on the ground dealing with these projects. What are those key trends? Let's talk about them, and tell me what people may be missing, because you see everyone jumping in on the Pilates thing right now. But what are your observations?
Okay, so starting with, so wellness is a new status symbol. So the growth of the industry over the last few years is because people start to realize that they, when you're born healthy, you have a gift, but you have an obligation to remain healthy. And that doesn't happen by itself. So what you see is now Gen Z and millennials, who are big drivers of the growth of our industry, are spending more of their wallet on wellness and health than luxury or even going to a bar. I was reading an article, I don't know in which UK magazine, but pubs are closing in the UK because the Gen Z is going to the gym and see that as their third place versus going to a bar. So you hear people say, we're moving from fitness to health longevity. I don't like the word longevity, and I'll talk about it in a moment on the words that I'm using. But what you see is longevity. When you mention the word longevity, a lot of people are linking longevity to biomarkers, supplements, wealthy people, $100,000. Yeah, not everybody can afford that. Clinics and all of that. So even from the longevity field, people say, let's move back to the fundamentals: sleep, nutrition, hydration, movement. Movement is something we can control as an industry, correct? And so the words that I'm using is lifespan, how long we live; health span, how long we remain healthy and capable; and then in order to have a good health span, you need strength span. That's a new word, strength span, that I like to use. And strength supports our ability to move, work, play, recover, and remain independent. So the objective isn't simply getting more muscles, it's getting more capable years. Because I think that is the critical driver. If you simplify it, it's how can you remain independent and capable to play with your grandchildren, doing the simple things in life. And I think that's where strength is so important.
Mm-hmm.
And in the industry, because you also asked what is people missing, a lot of people talk about moving from fitness to health longevity, don't have a freaky clue how to do it.
Right.
It's these buzzwords, correct? And then you say, what do you mean by that? What does that mean for you? And that's the challenge. Strength training is definitely getting more and more important. You have seen this, last couple of years, we see now larger operators like Planet and some others definitely lowering the number of cardio units, increasing the number or even square meters in their gym on strengths. I was listening to a presentation of John Canarick from Nordcastle, and he is saying, and I just make sure that I say it correctly, muscle is the body's pension fund. And he's so true. Strength training is getting much more important. Also linked to GLP-1. In the beginning, the industry was looking at GLP-1 as a threat. Oh, it's too simple to lose weight and just take a pill. But soon after they realized when you use GLP-1s, 50% of what you're losing, 50% of what you're losing is muscle mass. So GLP-1 actually is promoting the use of strength training versus not going to the gym anymore. And that's what people need to realize and start thinking through it. What people don't see enough, in my view, on those elements is the quality and the knowledge level of the trainers, the coaches, needs to increase, because nowadays members are more sophisticated because they can learn everything online, and now they go to a gym and some know more than the trainer, which
Right.
doesn't work, correct? You need to try to get the coaching from the trainer, not you coaching the trainer. I give you an example what is really interesting. Vasa, for example, launched I think, I don't know exactly the time, but they launched Studio Lift, where they realized strength training is more important, but some people just like to work out in a group. The good thing is retention research shows that people stay longer when they work out in a group. So really smart move. So that's how you see that strength and strength span, people start to adopt and implementing that within their programs. Pilates is linked to strength training. In a way, it is strength training, but I call it even further. People are, I wouldn't say moving away from it because you have high rocks, but that's only for the happy few, correct? I can tell you, I would almost go die in a high rocks training because I'm no longer that fit anymore. I work out almost every day, but I'm not that fit. But people are moving from high intensity to low intensity. And so that's another element why Pilates is so hot. And then the last element, somebody was talking about Pilates as contrology. It's learning your body how to move. So your brains and your muscles work together because it's such a controlled movement. And so those three elements, in my view, is another plus for the Pilates industry. Last trend is mental fitness. So one of the companies that I'm advising is focusing on, so as people, your brains need to be having a frequency 55 to 60% of your time in the alpha beta 1 frequency. The problem is nowadays, people are 80% in beta 2. And that is because performance-driven information overload. So that's why you see all these burnouts popping up. I don't know. I was listening to a podcast where you can hire a cabin for an hour and just sit in a sauna and relax, or sitting in an ice bath or relax. So it's all about this mental fitness. How do we help people on that health span versus just and moving back to that alpha beta 1 state of your brains versus the beta 2 state of your states. So recovery is another element. Right now, if you are an operator, except if you are maybe a bodybuilding club, you need to start thinking about how do I add recovery to my offering, because people now see this more holistic view of working out and recovery as one.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Before we get into technology, since you've been involved in the industry for a long span of time, so you have perspective, do you see things? I mean, obviously you're going to have trends and come and go. You've seen those happen over and over again. Has something substantially changed in the competitive landscape as far as how, these businesses compete with these new introductions of ideas and products? Or do you think it's still the same? Or is there anything that you've noticed as far as how that works in the market?
Yeah. Einstein once made an interesting comment: if you do what you did, you get what you got. And what I see is the population, so the ownership in our industry has, let's say, what is the best word? Is younger in general. And the younger generation has learned to be more agile, focusing more on change, looking at reality in the world, observing. They travel more, they see more trends, and then thinking through, because I think that is the most important part. You can see things, but it doesn't mean it fits in the story that you want to tell in your operation, correct? I call that marketing prostitution, where you pick things, you see something at a trade show and you say, oh, that's the latest trend. But you don't think about how is that
Work
with my story that I want to tell to my members. But the younger generation that is now driving clubs, and also you have seen more business people coming in that have better educations, that are building teams where they know, hey, 5 brains know more than 1 brain. So they create strong management teams with different specialism, a lot from outside the industry, which I believe, you learn a lot also from outside the industry. That's where I see a big shift, Bryan, where earlier on it was all driven by people who really understood training, working out and all of that. And now you see a significant focus toward business people running it. I still believe you need to work from your heart, not just your brains. So you can sense that when an operator is more working with the brains versus the heart in the story that they tell and how they, because customer journeys in the end feel it. Customers feel if there's a passion in the operation. But I think that would be the biggest shift I have seen over that number of years.
That makes a lot of sense. So let's talk about technology now. Obviously, you've seen a lot of things happen over the years with technology, everything. Well, look at the life cycle, the beginning of life. I mean, fitness. So that was a technological innovation. What are your observations on technology? How do you think it's impacted the industry space?
Definitely impacting the industry space, Bryan. I have a quote here where customization and personalization are transforming the wellness industry. There was research done that 82% of the customers are stating that they are picking a brand based on the fact that they are offering a personalized, tailored experience towards their needs. And that's where I think AI wearables come in. Where is the threat in my view? Right now, there's too much data. And people don't understand how to interpret that data. I think in one of your podcasts, somebody was saying data rich, knowledge poor. And so we need to move from pushing all that data out to really sharing information on how to interpret it, and based on your goals and your needs, what does that mean from you? So it's more action-based, outcome-based data. The other risk, so I'm a big believer of technology. If you see operations with technology versus one without, the one with technology will win. However, that human touch remains important. I was reading Les Mills' research, And they were saying, so one, to show that technology is important, 78% of individuals are using tools and devices to track progress the same or more than 3 years ago. 78%. But then the second item was only 10% of all consumers and only 11% of Gen Z prefer AI workout guidance over human coaching. Say it differently, 90 to 89% are preferring human coaching. But a coach with technology will win over a coach without technology. So
Yeah,
those are
agree.
the things I see.
Yeah, that's really spot on. I agree with you. So given your perspective, and you shared a lot with us, thanks again, Frank, for joining us. And by the way, everybody, as usual, we will have Frank's contact information, his bio, and other things about what he's doing in the show notes, so you can check out Frank and follow him on LinkedIn or whatever platform he's on. So given your vast experience, et cetera, I always like to ask and close the interview out with this question. I've had a long career. You haven't had that too. And so it's always good to share, pearls of wisdom, kind of insights that you've garnered over the years, because, we all trip and fall every now and then. We learn lessons. So can you share with the audience some of those thoughts and lessons?
I love that question, Bryan. You asked that to everyone. And if I don't have enough time, that's the area I always listen to, because I love that area. So I made a list for myself. I had to strip it down, otherwise we were spending here another hour. But the first one, which I believe is important, is follow your dreams. And I always tell my team, if your dreams don't scare you, you don't dream big enough. My parents, I come out of, didn't have a rich parents. So we had minimum money. My mom had to work to have me and my brother study. And I realized, man, that's not the life I want to have later on. I want to be independent. So then you set goals and you put a plan together on how to achieve it, which is my next advice. Be willing to work hard. You don't achieve what you and I have been achieving by doing 2 days a week, 3 days a week. Doesn't work. You need to be able and willing to put the hours in, because you work with people, you work with teams, and so you need to be there. And especially when you're working across the globe. So in the morning I was working with Asia, most likely same for you. During the day, Europe, and then later on it was the US. So you have to put in and be willing to put in a lot of hours. Third advice, surround yourself with talent. I always believe hire people that are smarter than you, and then make sure you use the brains in the room. Don't be the smartest guy in the room. If you have 7 people in your team or 6 people in your team, make sure you use the 6 brains. The other one, talent is great, team is better. So I always try to find people. So everybody, I looked at which are the strengths they have and how do I build a team that will be able to compensate the weakness of one with the strengths of another, and then build that strong team. I already said earlier, culture is key. I always said to my team, so goes the culture, so goes the company. So goes the leader, so goes the culture. So you need to lead by example and live the culture you want to live. I always say, for example, in meetings, I have 2 rules. Everything can be said as long as it with respect. And the second rule is silence means consent. So that's how you create an open environment where people are, safe to speak up their minds. I always say, as long as you say it with respect, you can disagree with me. I'm not the smartest guy in the room. We have 7 brains. Let's use the 7 brains and come up with what is best for the business. We talked about it earlier. Albert Einstein, another quote from him is, the measure of intelligence is the ability to change. So be open. At GE, I learned face the brutal facts. Look what is happening, face the brutal facts, and then be willing to change. That's always hard, But you need to do that, especially with the speed of change that is happening. And then the last one that I have is play to win, not play to play. So those are my pearls of wisdom, Bryan.
Sorry about that. Some reason my internet hung up. So we have you
No,
down. Just hop back in and they'll edit it out. It won't be a problem. Let me,
no worries.
so let's keep going. So you were saying you were getting into some really good stuff. You talked about G, et cetera. So keep going.
Yeah, I think I finished it, so I don't know where we were cut off. But so, we talked about around yourself with talent. I think that was
Yep.
the last, and then I
Yes.
think we lost. So after talent, I think team is even more than talent. I think Michael Jordan is the best example. He was selected as the best player of the NBA for years and years, but they didn't win the championship. Only when I joined the Bulls, they became the champion, and he was elected as a talent. So team is even bigger. Tim McCarthy and myself talked about one team. When he was running the Americas, I was international, but it's in the end, it's one team, correct? It's one company. It's not two teams fight. No, it's one team. And that's so important. I also mentioned earlier on that I'm a big believer of having the right culture. So I always say, so goes the culture, so goes the company, and so goes the leader, so goes the culture. So the leader is really important to drive that culture. I remember when I came back, so I resigned at Life Fitness in 2019, came back when Chris asked me back. And one of my first meeting with the team was, so with the team international, I said, okay, let's talk about where are we right now on a scale from 0 to 10 on how safe you feel to speak up your mind. And I was shocked by the result. And so I said, okay, as of now, I implemented the 2 rules. Everything can be said as long as with respect, and silence means consent. And so that changed. Let's say people felt okay to also disagree sometimes with my view. So it is okay because, 7 brains in the room know more than 1 brain. And otherwise, why would you even have a management team if you believe that you know everything, correct?
Right.
So that is important. And the ability to change, we talked about it already. That is super critical right now. What are you seeing? What is the data telling you? And so again, back to technology. The technology provides you data as an operator. Yesterday, I had a call with somebody who worked at Beachbody in the past, and they were tracking, okay, how many times a person joins the facility. What is the reason for that? How can they, for example, especially in the first 12 weeks, move from 2 visits per week to 3 visits per week? And those are the things that as an operator, you need to look at and then see how can I improve my business. And then the last one, I think I started with that, play to win, not play to play. I don't know if I even told you that story. And it's not a great educational story for younger kids, but So my wife's sister had a little boy, Morris. Morris was, I think, 4 years old. And so he asked, "Hey, Uncle Frank, do you want to play checkers with me?" But he didn't know that I played checkers really well and for a longer time already, also in some tournaments. So I looked at his mom and I said, "Are you okay for me to play with him? Because I'm playing to play. I win. I'm not playing to play. And so it could be in a minute that, and are you okay with it?" "Oh, yeah. So within a minute, boom, game was over. I won. Morris was crying. And I said, "I told you so." That's in me, in my DNA. I play to play, whatever I do.
That's a good story. Poor Morris.
Yes. Yeah, as I said, educational, it's not the best thing for younger kids, but there you go.
Well, I'm sure Morris is an outstanding checker player nowadays. So, well, Frank, I really appreciate you making time for the audience. As I said, all your information is going to be in the show notes, and always a pleasure to hear your voice. It's fantastic that you're able to spend time and share your story. Thanks so much, and I look forward to seeing you across the pond here in the coming weeks and months.
Thank you, Bryan. And then, the audience in Brazil is blessed having you as a keynote speaker, and enjoy your time afterwards in Argentina.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.